Would you like to have your query letter critiqued but don't want to pay to have that happen? It can be done for free out here on my socials. My name is Gina. I'm an author, editor, publishing professional. I help you make your writing better. Please keep in mind that there is a real life person on the other side of this query, and so everybody is going to be nice to them, and nobody is going to jump into the comment section telling them to just go self-publish, because that's not how any of this works. Let's jump in. All right, insert personalization. In The Ashes of Forgiveness is a 100,000 word adult high fantasy novel. We don't need the word novel in there, with series potential, told in multiple POVs. You also don't necessarily need to say in the query letter that it is told in multiple POVs. I'm not entirely sure like why people are so concerned about this lately. This is not a thing that I have seen around the writing community over the last 15 years, but this is like an all of a sudden thing that people are like, I have to make sure that everybody knows that you don't need to put that in the query letter. It's fine if it helps to clarify something about the way the story is structured or the way that the story is told. That might be a selling point, that might be okay to include, but it's definitely not necessary. I want everybody to hear that. You don't necessarily need to include that in the query letter. Combines Marie Brennan's Driftwood themes about forgiveness and accepting loss with the revenge plot of Avon Winters. Those two things contradict each other. If you're saying that it combines forgiveness with revenge, those are opposites. And takes place in a world where gemstones grant different powers, like Trudy Canavan's Traitor Spy series. This is really old. I'm not entirely sure that this like particular plotline is unique enough to pull something that is 15 years old. And yeah, we have a storyline about forgiveness and also a storyline about revenge. Feels like maybe we just are looking for like, this is like a post-apocalyptic vibe, and this is sort of a brutal, like kind of almost dark fantasy before everybody started using that to talk about like romance type stuff. So we're getting a good vibe here, but like talking about forgiveness and revenge plots, and comp titles don't need to be about plot points. This is much more about vibes, not about plots. And also, if again you're telling a story about revenge and forgiveness at the same time, feels contradictory. Zan Metris always hated his father for abandoning him and his mother. Now he works as a mercenary to fight the Dwellers, otherworldly beings capable of mimicking the human form, to build a different legacy than his father's selfishly made one. This all sounds like backstory. That's until he meets Ariel Reed, a woman seeking vengeance for her parents who died during the tragedy that befell her hometown. Desperate to find the perpetrator, Ariel asks Zan to guide her to a survivor of the disaster he knows, unaware that the Dwellers are also on the move. It's all backstory and setup, and we have too many of the wrong kind of details. So he meets Ariel, who is hell-bent on vengeance. I don't need to know that it's about like a disaster that hit her hometown and affected her parents specifically. She wants vengeance. That's the important thing that we need to know about her here. So this can be condensed down significantly, and we need to focus on the correct details rather than the stuff that is all backstory. Tired of the imbalance of power in the world of Arcadian, we rarely need to list like names of creatures, names of cities, names of kingdoms. That usually is not going to be helpful, and it's going to contribute to a feeling of name soup, particularly in these science fiction and fantasy stories. The Dwellers take Rosa hostage, Auriel's closest friend and noble from the Virizian kingdom. So this is exactly what I was talking about. I didn't know that was going to happen in the sentence where it started. But we have Arcadian, Dwellers, Rosa, Auriel, Virizian, all of those in one sentence. And one of them, Ariel is a person, and you had explained what the Dwellers were before, but you've introduced 3 proper nouns, and we know the name Rosa, but you can see how this is starting to feel very name soupy. Reduce those proper nouns, focus on the characters, and focus specifically on the ones that are necessary to the story. Rosa may or may not need to be named. Ariel's closest friend has been kidnapped. This does seem like it's going to be getting in the way of the vengeance plot that was introduced in the first paragraph, so it feels like maybe we have too many pieces going on. Okay, so the Dwellers took Rosa to find where the records depicting a legendary rune inscription are hidden away. Tired of the imbalance of power, the Dwellers are now the protagonists. They have taken Rosa to find where the records depicting a legendary rune inscription are hidden away. That makes it sound like we are supposed to be rooting for the Dwellers. Let's keep going, because that doesn't line up with what was in the first paragraph. Afraid of losing another person, Ariel begins her search for Rosa, and Zan commits to helping her in her time of need, the opposite of what his father chose to do for the woman he loved. feels like this is Ariel's story, not Zan's. He's like along for the ride, but Ariel is really the one with the arc here. Why are we focusing on Zan? Realizing their enemies aren't just the dwellers, as Verizon. You would think that I would get good at pronouncing fantasy names if I'm going to read 100 fantasy books every year. Noble families will fight with each other and make the task harder. Realizing their enemies aren't just the dwellers, as the noble families fight with each other and make what task harder. They will have to take matters into what matters. Are they going to rescue Rosa? Are they going to stop the dwellers? The enemies are not just the dwellers, though. I'm not sure what we're referring to. That also means they will have to face their deepest fears head on, and this was a story about vengeance, not about like overcoming one's fears. And neither of them have been described as being particularly fearful. And you haven't even really like talked about this being a particularly scary world. I mean, you got like the dwellers, but they are sort of the good people here. I'm not sure. Little did they know, numerous doors to well-kept secrets will open this way. What way? What and who's they? Little do they know. So are we now talking about the dwellers, or are we talking about the noble families? Are we talking about Ariel and Zan? Who's they in this, and what is the way that these secret doors will be opened, shaking what they once took for granted? This was not a story about discovery. This was a story about vengeance. So you have started with vengeance, and then it became a kidnapping rescue quest, and then it became something about uncovering secrets from the past. There's too many things going on. We need to focus in on what the central plot is. You can have all of these subplots working in the manuscript, especially at 100,000 words, and especially in a genre like high fantasy where people like the plots to be very twisty and complex. This could all work perfectly fine on the manuscript. Right now, it feels scattered. It feels like we don't know what the through line is, and I'm not even totally sure that you've properly identified who your protagonist is. Inner demons, mighty creatures, and hidden truths. One plan will thread them all together. You don't need that. That doesn't tell us anything. The world at risk. Getting Rosa out of the dweller's clutches won't be just a mission to save a friend anymore. So you sort of like mentioned that Rosa was taken up here, but she was taken to find where the records are depicting something. So I am quite confused about what the plot is. Who is our main character? I mean, you said Zan at first, so let's go with him. What is it that he wants? Totally and completely unclear. What is he willing to do to get it? Tag along with someone that he just met on a mission to rescue her friend, where she may or may not be in danger because she was just being taken to a place where there were records being hidden. What is standing in his way? General things, like there's something here, but it's not being described well. So there's enemies unseen, a task that will be harder, deepest fears, very unclear. Even if we look at this from Ariel's point of view, what is it that she wants? She wants vengeance. What is she willing to do to get it? Go on a side quest. We don't talk about vengeance at all after that first paragraph. What is standing in her way? Again, the general sense of doom and something closing in. And what happens if they fail? Totally and completely missing from this. I don't know what is at stake for anybody in this. Focus on who your protagonist is. They are the person who changes the most over the course of the story. They are the one whose hook mirrors the resolution. Tell us those 5 questions. Who are they? What do they want? What is standing in their way? What are they willing to do to get it? And what happens if they fail? I should know the answers to those things by the end of the story and drop a lot of the name soup out of here.